Good evening. It is 5:30. I'll call our meeting to order. Today is April 13th, 2020, and this is a regular meeting of the USD 305 Board of Education. Thank you all for being here. It's nice to see so many people in the room, and we get to do some great celebrations this afternoon with all of you. So if you wouldn't mind, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any additions or corrections needed for the agenda? Nope. There are none. I would take a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Dina?
I move that we approve, that we before we approve. I'm sorry, I lost it.
So moved.
Emma Doherty, second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried 7-0. Item 4A, Salina Education Foundation Lift and Grant presentations with Mr. Michael Chambers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm Michael Chambers. I'm the Executive Director of the Salina Education Foundation, and thank you for allowing us some time this evening to recognize and publicly celebrate our LIFT recipients and the grant recipients. First, I'd like to recognize the newest LIFT recipients, and LIFT is a program of the Salina Education Foundation, which is made possible by the generous donations from people in our community. And it's intended to offer forgivable loans to assist with educational expenses for people intending to become teachers and return to the Salina community and teach in USD 305. The loans are forgiven over time. The recipient teaches in Salina Public Schools. So the recipients are selected in a competitive process by the Education Foundation trustees, USD 305 staff, and other community members. And I've asked each of our 3 recipients to join us here tonight and to introduce themselves to you. So first up is Lexi Doherty.
Hi everyone, I'm Lexi Doherty. I'm a senior at South High. I've wanted to be a teacher since I was very little. I would always go home and play teacher with my dolls and my dogs and always read books, and I'm very excited and thankful for all of you for allowing me to have this scholarship and continue my education at K-State to hopefully become an elementary school teacher. So thank you.
And next up is Melissa Gates.
Hello, I am Melissa Gates. I'm the career specialist at Salina South High School. I never set out to be a teacher. In fact, I hated high school, but yet here I am. A very long time ago, I graduated from K-State with degrees in business, computer science, and technology management. And after working with United Way for several years and starting a family, I took a job with the district. So for the last 11 and a half years, I've worked at South High School. After 6 years of being a paraeducator, the great Gary White pressured me into taking the JAG job. I have spent the last 6 years waking up with passion and purpose, and I have loved every minute of it. When I was told that the JAG program would possibly be cut, I was devastated and heartbroken, not just for me, but for my kids. So I knew that I had to stay in education. I have spent several years building relationships and helping kids graduate and prepare them for life after high school. So although I don't have a teaching degree now, I really have been teaching for years. So the thought of not working in education made me sick, and I decided that I needed to take action and enroll at Fort Hays State, and I am accepted into the transition to teaching program. So I am grateful for the opportunity to be able to have financial assistance while obtaining my teaching license, and I hope to stay in USD 305 for a very long time.
And next up is Reagan Stein.
Hi, I'm Reagan Stein. I've known I wanted to teach since about 8th grade. I had a teacher who just really changed my outlook on math, and I've known since then that I wanted to be able to have that same impact on students in the future. And so getting this scholarship means a lot to me because it's going to make that goal a lot more achievable for me.
Congratulations, Reagan. Here's your certificate. Thank you. So congratulations to Lexi, Melissa, and Reagan. We look forward to you becoming excellent teachers and returning to Salina Public Schools. So congratulations. Salina Education Foundation also has awarded more than $28,000 in grants for the 2021-2022 school year. And these grants are funded through charitable gifts made by USD 305 teachers and staff and Salina Education Foundation's business partners. And thank you to everyone who gives so generously to make those great projects happen in classrooms and other places in our community. And we do want to recognize our grant recipients. Some of them were unable to be here, and some of them were here for a short time and then had to go. But we're going to go ahead and recognize all of the grant recipients. And those of you that are here, if you would just come up quickly and receive your certificate when I call your name, I'd appreciate it. So the following people and projects were awarded funds. We have two kinds of grants that we award, and the first are outside the box. And Gina Turner from Meadowlark Ridge was awarded $850 for the William Allen White Award Celebration Trip. And Gina could not be here, but her principal, Mrs. Hilbig, is here to accept on her behalf. So, thank you. Congratulations. And Elizabeth Burke is here from South High, and she was awarded $1,951 for high school book clubs. So, congratulations. The other grants that we have funded this year are 21st Century Advantage grants, and Michelle Ramsey from Cottonwood Elementary was awarded $1,080 for STEM bins. And Michelle was here earlier, but I don't see her here anymore. Lisa Hall from Meadowlark Ridge Elementary was awarded $429 for closing the reading gap. And Margie Hogarty from Meadowlark Ridge Elementary was awarded $191 for primary STEM activity kits. And Carla Arpin and Lisa Oakes from Central Kansas Cooperative and Education were awarded $1,409 for a vertical stander conversion kit. Congratulations. And Shelley Parks, is Shelley still here? Shelley Parks from Central Kansas Cooperative Education was awarded $895 for preschool puzzle kits. And Samantha Morin from Central Kansas Cooperative and Education was awarded $1,899 for a 3D printer to print specialized tools. And Eddie Creer from South High was awarded a second year of his Building Musicians grants for $1,500. And I don't think Mr. Creer is here this evening. So, Salina Education Foundation trustees also awarded $400 grants to each of the secondary school Stuco programs and $400 grants to each of the elementary school libraries. Thank you, all of you, for your support of the Salina Education Foundation. Thank you for your support of the Salina Education Foundation. And we really appreciate you coming this evening to help celebrate the lift recipients and the grant recipients. So, thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you to you and your organization and your Board of Trustees for all that you do for our teachers and students. On to You Make a Difference Awards with Jennifer Camion.
Good evening. The You Make a Difference Award is presented to staff members whose exemplary actions support students, colleagues, and the mission of Salina Public Schools. Recipients of these awards receive a lapel pin and a handwritten note personally delivered by a Board of Education member. Gene Bennett, building operator at Schilling Elementary. Gene is known throughout his school building for his work ethic and pleasant disposition. He has done an amazing job applying the changes as a result of COVID-19. He works hard to keep Schilling clean and safe and is always kind to everyone. Thank you for making a difference, Gene. Karen Humphreys, paraeducator, Lakewood Middle School. Karen's connection to students is apparent as she is able to provide a calming influence and motivate them to work. Often they stand at the doorway waiting for her to enter the room. She has shared her personal rock collection with students and often suggests science ideas to teachers. Thank you, Karen. Dustin Glavin, building operator, Central High School. Dustin's positive outlook and can-do attitude supports excellent care for the Salina High School building. He arrives early, works alongside staff, and handles issues regardless of the time at night. On snowy mornings, Dustin arrives at 3:30 a.m. to help make sure the property is safe for students and staff. Thank you, Dustin. Megan Willis, family support facilitator, Sunset Elementary School. Students know they can count on Megan, who has consistently proven she is a master problem solver, always fair but firm and a quick thinker. She practices collaborative problem solving and trauma-informed care daily, consistently contributing to the school culture. Thank you, Megan, for making a difference. Toby Adams, Spanish teacher at South High School. February's bitter cold left one of Toby's students with a flat tire. Without any family in town, the student was at a loss for solutions. Toby arranged for a tow and appointment to fix the car's tire and only asked that the student one day pay it forward. Thank you, Toby, for making a difference. Emily Barkus, Human Resources Assistant, District Office. When she had an idea to address a need, Emily's initiative directly improved new employee orientations. Above and beyond the call of duty, she created a presentation to explain employee benefits. Thank you, Emily, for your commitment to quality customer service and for making a difference. Darcy Redden, occupational therapist, Central High School. Everyone who works with Darcy is impressed with her thoughtful, kind, and professional manner. Her collaboration skills ensure that coordination between special education, nursing, and physical therapy merge seamlessly in the best interest of students. Thank you, Darcy, for making a difference. And now we'll move on to Superintendent's Awards. Our first group of awards this evening goes to basketball state qualifiers at Central High School. They finished third in the state tournament and had an overall record of 19 wins and 5 losses. Chris Fear is their coach. Will you please join Superintendent Exline in the front? And will all the basketball players please line up next to him? As I call your name, please step toward Superintendent Exline so you can receive your award. And at that time, parents, if you would like to take a picture, stand up and we'll be glad to pause for a photo. After you've received your award, students, please walk to the end of the line and remain standing until all students have been recognized. Central Girls, Central Girls basketball team members are Madison Freeman, senior, Hampton Williams, Jr., Aubrey Kirsch, Jr., Chalicia Samilton, Jr., Landry Stewart, Jr., Lexi Fisher, Jr., Michaela Cunningham, sophomore, Bryn O'Hara, sophomore, Callan Hall, freshman, Tyler Vidrickson, freshman, Asby Peckham, freshman. Congratulations to these students. Our final group of awards this evening goes to robotics students at Salina Central. Sheila Allstat is the coach. If you would please join Superintendent Exline in the front. And will all the robotics students please line up as well? Team members are Jordan Allstat, senior. Asia Gomes, senior. Drew Allstat, junior. Colton Prothro, junior. Wesley Owens, junior. Keaton Oxendale, junior. Nathaniel Cabada, junior. Ariane Cavat, junior. Abigail Henning, junior. Jasmine Bledsoe, junior. Starlet Parham, junior. Diego Garcia, senior. Freshman. Diego Garcia, freshman. Congratulations to these students.
Congratulations to all of our award winners. Moving on to item 5, approval of our consent agenda items. Items this evening are minutes of the March 9th, 2021 regular meeting, the personnel reports, financial reports including the March bills list, February treasurer's report, February investment report, and February journal entries, approval of SB 40 hearing procedures, approval of the following encumbrance listings to CDWG for the Barracuda Fish Line subscription in the amount of $23,256, to Weidenheimer for the annual Olio maintenance agreement renewal in the amount of $36,030.74, to Brain Pop for the annual renewal in the amount of $24,049.35, to the Core Collaborative for professional development in the amount of $51,632.50, to Jones Gillum Rents Architects in the amount of $30,000 for Phase 2 architectural services for the South High Softball Complex. Approval of the Heartland Playground and Bus Canopies bid to Ponton Construction, Inc. in the amount of $216,895. Approval of the warehouse facility bid to Nelson Fowles Construction, LLC in the amount of $1,516,500. Approval of the Central High Robotics gift acceptance in the amount of $10,000. Approval of the CKCIE gift acceptance in the amount of $6,499 for a speech generating device. Approval of the Federal Head Start and Early Head Start grant application cost of living adjustment, funding in the amount of $63,456. And approval of the Federal Head Start and Early Head Start grant application in response to COVID-19 funding in the amount of $143,562. $143,562. Is there a motion to approve those items? Ian?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I move that we accept the, sorry, what's it called? I'm caught it
Consent
from
agenda.
Dana. The consent agenda items, yes, thank you.
In a second. Mark seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried 7-0. On to item 6 on our agenda, public forum. If there's anyone here from the community that would like to speak on an issue not on our agenda. They did all leave. We're all alone again, unfortunately. Hearing none. On to our action agenda and item 7A, bond refinancing with Greg Behrenberg.
Well, that's a first in my career. Thank you. Good evening, board members. Greg Varenberg with Raymond James, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this afternoon. Wanted to talk to you about a refinancing opportunity, but as many of you may remember, the district has taken advantage of low interest rates a number of times over the last 20 years. I've been fortunate to work with you going back to the 1998 bond election, then again in 2014. And when you look back over that period of time, you've had about 10 different refinancings when interest rates are low. And it's important to note that when we do a bond refinancing, it's a little different than refinancing a home loan. You can go in and look at each series of bonds that has been sold, and then inside of that, each principal payment or each year, and only go in and selectively refinance the years that produce savings. And so that's why some of the refinancings have been smaller, or maybe you've done this several times. But it's interesting when you look back over the opportunities that you've taken advantage of. You've had savings that ranged from $216,000 to a high of $5 million, and the cumulative savings on those refinancings to date is $10,342,000, and that is a lot of money that is staying in the district and the community rather than being paid out to bond investors. And we've been watching interest rates and refinancing opportunities for you over the years, but especially here recently with the drop in interest rates. We hit an all-time record low in August of 2020, and that's really created an opportunity for a lot of cities, counties, and school districts to refinance bonds and capture some additional savings. The opportunity that we're going to share with you this evening would add about $1.7 million to that cumulative savings. And if we're able to lock in a savings around that amount, that will push the savings over $12 million for the district. But one of the things, too, that we look at quite often for the district is the mill levy analysis for your bond and interest fund. We will do that even when we're not looking at a refinancing, because we want to see if there's any opportunities to be maybe a little more aggressive in paying the bonds back more quickly, or if we see pressure on the mill levy and the bond and interest fund, we want the district to know that. And so as we were looking at this refinancing opportunity, we were also looking at the mill levy analysis. And what we saw was that there is an opportunity to be a little more aggressive in the repayment of the bonds. When we work with you on a bond election, we have to make certain projections regarding the mill levy, and that includes projections related to assessed valuation growth rate, and then also related to your state aid that you get for the bond and interest fund. When you look back through or to the 2014 bond election, the tax base of the district has grown at a pretty good pace. It's been about 2.2% average annual growth rate the last 3 years, about 2.11% for the last 5 years. That's a little bit higher than we use for planning purposes. And then also your state aid has grown quite a bit. You go back to 2014, 2015 fiscal year, it was for the pre-2015 percentage, it was 29%. Now it has grown to 41%. You're picking up about 1.7 percentage points each year in that state aid. And so the higher state aid percentage you have, that means it's less of a burden on the local taxpayers and takes some of that pressure off of the mill levy. So with that, we updated our mill levy analysis. We looked at the refinancing opportunity, and what we realized was that there's a opportunity here to be a little more aggressive on the repayment of the portion of bonds we're refinancing. We're looking at refinancing somewhere around 15 million of the outstanding bonds, and those bonds have payments going out to the year 2034. If we shorten up that repayment schedule to 2029, we would shorten that repayment period by 5 years. That helps, just shortening the repayment period and paying back principal more quickly helps on capturing the savings. But we would also be in a position where we would be able to take the interest rate on the bonds being refinanced from a rate of about 2.6% down to a rate of 1.43%. So a shorter repayment period, a lower interest rate, results in that savings of about $1,701,000. So the action that is requested of you this evening is what we refer to as the authorizing resolution. It gives us permission to start working on the refinancing, obtaining the bond rating that we would need to eventually use when we sell the refunding bonds to investors. Also prepare the official statement, which is a disclosure document given to investors. And assuming interest rates remain favorable and it still makes sense to move forward, then we would be in a position, hopefully in early part of May, to offer the bonds to investors, lock in the interest rates, lock in the savings, and then we would bring that final savings back to you at your May board meeting. And at the May board meeting, we would present the final savings, and if it was acceptable, you would adopt what's referred to as the bond resolution. So the first step really doesn't obligate you to complete the refinancing. It just gives us permission to start working on it. That second action is the binding action where we have the final interest rates. And if you adopt that bond resolution, then it locks in the savings and the refinancing for the district. So we wanted to, and the other thing too that I failed to point out, important, we're shortening up the repayment period by 5 years on the portion of bonds we're refinancing. But part of that is principal coming due in the year 2034. So this refinancing will have the district out of debt a full 1 year sooner on all of your bonds as a result of shortening up this portion. So that's a nice benefit too when you think back to that 2014 bond election. When I look back at what has happened since that election, you know, the mill levy has been lower than what was represented to voters. Now you're in a position where you can pay off the bonds more quickly and be out of debt entirely 1 year sooner. And you've captured a little over 6-7 million since that 2014 bond election. So it's a pretty powerful message for the community, and you know, I've appreciated the chance to help you with those prior refinancings, and I would love to have the opportunity to help you with this refinancing if it's something you're interested in. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the group?
I'll just ask, could you just tell us what MMD means? I looked it up and now I've forgotten.
Sure. MMD is an index in the municipal bond market. It's called Municipal Market Data Index, and it tracks the interest rates on tax-exempt municipal bonds. So it's an index that when we're looking at what is happening in the municipal bond market and where have interest rates been versus where they are, it's that MMD index that we look at.
Thank you.
Your questions? Yes.
My question was just, as you said, we'd be a little more aggressive on the payment of that. What would the mill levy rate be? As I'm looking at the presentation here, and it looks like we're somewhere around 10.729 now. Would that change when you say more aggressive, or I guess?
Good question, and I should have touched on that because that really is at kind of the heart of this whole approach is we can repay the bonds more quickly without putting upward pressure on the mill levy. You've been at, currently you're at about 10.729 mils, and our analysis shows that even after this refinancing and paying off the bonds more quickly, we would still remain at that 10.729 mils. And really, when you look back at I don't remember the exact mill levy that was presented to the voters in 2014, we're well below that. But we assume that even with that said, you don't want to be in a position where you have to start raising the mill levy. But if we can keep it constant, pay off the bonds more quickly, and capture savings, then that's really what we were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, because 2019, we refinanced and actually dropped the mill levy a smidge, correct?
Correct, yeah. And the 2019 refinancing was a larger refinancing, and that captured a little over $5 million in savings. And at that point in time, we didn't look at refinancing or being more aggressive with the repayment of the refinancing, but that previous $5 million savings does open that window of opportunity for the district now because you're paying $5 million less over the coming years. Now we can start accelerating into that. So that previous refinancing helped create this opportunity.
Other questions?
Not so much a question, just a comment. Maybe I clapped at the front end, but I was serious when I did that because, in my opinion, for our taxpayers, saving $12 million over the life of a thing is worth doing. And I appreciate your work with Mrs. Peters and others to keep an eye on these things. I mean, clearly you're an expert in this field, and I appreciate your partnership and keeping an eye on the ball for us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the kind words, and I do appreciate the applause. So.
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, I would move that we approve the resolution for the Series 2021 General Obligation Refunding Bonds as presented.
It was incredibly well said, and I would take a second. Mark seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Look forward to seeing you in May.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice evening.
You too. On to item 7B, proposed textbook adoptions.
Good evening. Just for context, to kind of go back to the October board meeting, you all were fortunate. We were very fortunate to have you pass the approval of a class called Environmental Science. And tonight's textbook adoption really is based off of that course that Sheila Schaefer kind of had the genesis of the idea of starting this class, and with the other department chair, Shannon Peters, as well as Larry Nutter, they started that process. Teachers from South and Central both met, Trey Crow, Billy Joe Bonner, and Lori Train, and reviewed the textbook that is being proposed tonight and recommended for your approval, which is titled Environmental Science, Your World, Your Turn. And when you look through the criteria, based on what the board has established as kind of the vision, this textbook does support the communication, critical thinking, and social emotional learning of our students, and it is recommended for your approval. If there are any questions, I'll take those.
Questions from the group? We would take a motion on this too. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the textbook adoption and purchase of textbooks and instructional resources for high school environmental science as presented.
Thank you. In a second.
Emma Doherty, second.
Thank you, Emma. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your support.
On to item 7C, Capital Improvement Plan. Chris Epson.
applause?
Sorry, I couldn't do it with the pink.
Oh, I just spend money. Dang it, I just spend it. I'm bringing the capital improvement plan back to the board, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have about it.
Reviewed this at a work session last board meeting. Questions from anyone? That plan was in your packet in its entirety.
It was a good discussion last meeting, and I read through things again, and I have no concerns.
Take a motion if
With
you're.
that in mind,
Yes,
Mr. President, move we approve the capital improvement plan as presented.
Thank you. In a second.
Emma Doherty, second.
Emma, thank you. Motion in a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you,
Thank
sir. Athletic book revisions, item 7D with Superintendent Exline.
Yes, at the last meeting, I presented to you just a couple changes on our athletic handbook. The first is that we have been adding on an annual basis an assistant coach at the middle school for cross-country, and it's time to make that permanent because the numbers really do warrant that extra supervision and coaching. So that's the first addition. And the second addition is to revert the eligibility requirements back from the 4-block system that we're in this year because of the pandemic to the eligibility for the full schedule. And so those are the only two changes, and at this time I would recommend that you approve the athletic handbook as presented unless you have questions and need further clarification.
Questions or motion from someone?
I'm going to try it again. Mr. President, I move that we approve the 2021-2022 athletic handbook as presented.
Sounds fantastic. Second. Thank you, Jim. Seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Item 7E, resolution of the Board of Education's intent to non-renew contract for a probationary teacher for 21-22.
Good evening.
Hello.
State law requires you to announce your intent to non-renew anytime we have a teaching contract that we intend to not renew for the following school year. As you know, continuing contact law says that contracts continue if the employees are not notified by the third Friday in May. So that's what we're here tonight to ask you to recommend to non-renew for next year.
Thank you. There is the resolution's in your packet, and there is a motion there as well.
I move that we adopt the following resolution calling for a non-renewal as presented.
Thank you. And is there a second? Second by Mark. The motion as it was written is good.
It's kind of funny.
Enough. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you.
On to 7F, 2021-2022 high school student handbook revisions with Shannon Rector.
Good evening. This year, I'm actually only bringing personnel changes and yearly dates, kind of general updates to the handbook. No substantial information has been changed in that handbook from last year, or from this year. Last year, when we brought handbook changes to you, there was an extensive amount that we changed at the high school handbook. And so I guess the high school principals did such an excellent job last year that they don't have any changes for this year. So I'm just bringing forward this for your approval tonight. The high school handbook with just personnel changes, yearly date changes as well.
Thank you. Questions from anyone here? If not, I'd take a motion.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we accept the 2021-2022 high school student handbook as presented.
In a second by Scott. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you. Rapid fire tonight. On to discussion, item 8A, elementary and middle school student handbooks for 21-22.
with the elementary handbook, you have the information in your packet, and in general, the only real revision for the elementary handbook this year is to reflect current kindergarten roundup processing and screening practices, adding that to kind of an online mechanism. This year, the kindergarten roundups, they're communicating with families virtually, and we've also done some updates to the website to make sure that we're informing parents of how to pre-enroll with kindergarten. And so that is the only handbook change we have for elementary for your review. Any questions?
Questions there? Okay. We can move that to our action agenda if anyone wants to make a motion to that effect.
Would that be helpful, Mrs. Rector, or is it?
That would be helpful, yes.
Yep.
So the routine would be we need to have a motion to move it to the action item first? Well, I move we approve the elementary school handbook as presented.
In a second?
Second.
And seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried 7-0. And on to the middle school handbook.
Okay, for the middle school handbook, we have several changes. One of the changes is regard to the daily procedure, and so changing the word rule to expectations. The language that they use at both the middle school and high school really is about expectations and setting those in the classroom, and so they would like to update the language in the student handbook. And then also there's some language change in regards to being able to take bags and backpacks into the classroom. And so later on in the changes, you'll see that there's a change to lockers, where before they have always assigned lockers to the students automatically. They are now proposing that they actually just assign lockers upon request, because those lockers are really very limitedly used. And so that way they can be very strategic in how they assign lockers to students to make sure that they're in the best place possible for the students that need them. And so with that change, then they're going to need to be able to take their materials to the classroom with them in their backpacks or their bags. Then the next one that you'll see is on bicycles, and so really adding to that scooters, skateboards, rollerblades, to that heading, because sometimes students are not just on the wheels of a bicycle, they're traveling to school in other mechanisms, and so they wanted to have that clarification in the handbook. Then you'll see that there's information about cell phones, and this is about basically being able to keep that cell phone on their person instead of putting it in their locker. Before, the information was that they really wanted students to put that in their locker each and every day, and there was guidelines to that. And really in today's reality, the students have the ability, the expectation is for them to put it away, kind of out of sight, out of mind during the school day, and that's the expectation we set for students, and we want to give them the ability to keep that cell phone on them and have it with them, but know what the expectations are and not necessarily have to put it in a locker. Then the next one is in-school suspension. It's just some clarification of some wording of when students are to arrive or leave school. That is no longer a practice with in-school suspension. And then there was an addition of that wording into the Lakewood Middle School handbook. Then you'll see that there's information about lockers, so basically changing from that automatically assigned to upon request. And then you'll see that there's also the STAR student expectations. This is a matrix of expectations that were developed with input from the teachers, and so they would like to add that at the Lakewood handbook. South Middle School already has a matrix that is in their handbook. Are there any questions about these changes?
Yes, sir.
On your bicycles, the second one, my concern is when they come out with a different type of method of hovering or whatever they want to do.
We need to add hovercrafts to that.
Well, you know, they've got that one where you step on and you just lean forward. I don't think that's a scooter. I don't know what that thing is called. My son had one, but I didn't do it. Anyways, my concern is that you don't have enough to give you leeway in this.
Okay. So maybe add some wording that will kind of be more
So that you
comprehensive.
don't have to keep coming back.
Got it.
That's my only concern.
Okay. We can put some wording together, and when I come back for action, we can present that.
Very good. Other questions or comments? Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Moving on to discussion agenda item 8B, proposed textbook adoptions with Tiffany Lowe. Hello there.
Hello, good evening. I want to point out that we have a wonderful ESL educator in the back of the room who did not want to come up here because she was afraid you guys were going to applaud for her. Thank you. So that is Amy Armstrong, though. So tonight, if we have some questions, she can address those questions as well. Tonight, I am just here to talk to you about our ESL text adoption that we have. And what we are proposing is in front of you. So our ESL teachers have been going through the process of looking through adoptions, and we have come to the conclusion that our Reach Higher, which is actually the curriculum we currently have, the updated version, would be best for our 1st through 5th grade students, and then the Our World curriculum by the same company for our kindergarten students, but then also our newcomers from other countries. This curriculum would help us support, I pulled numbers today, and we have about 271 kiddos that would get services through this curriculum coming next year, but that does not include any new students we get or our kindergarten students. So on average, we're looking at about 300 kids a year that would be serviced with this curriculum throughout our elementary schools. Like I said, Amy is here to help with any questions you may have that I can't answer, and then the curriculum is also available for preview in Amy Langen's office over by Shanna's office. So any additional questions you guys have?
Just out of curiosity, how many languages are we dealing with on average?
Our predominant language would be Spanish, but right now we're looking at about 8 across our K-12, in our elementary specifically about 6.
The questions?
I guess, I know we're looking at K through 5.
Mhm.
Could you just help me real quick? How does this align with our 6 through 12 curriculum?
Oh, that's a great question. It actually aligns very well. Our middle school will be up for text adoption next year, and our high school just adopted last year. So what you approved last year was actually the same, by the same company, so it does align very well. It also aligns really well with what we do reading programming wise, to really help support in the classrooms what's already going in our whole group and our small group in our elementary schools, give them another service to help that language development. So it's a great question.
Very good. Other questions? This also could be moved to our action agenda if anyone wanted to make a motion.
That was going to be my question.
Yes.
Is by adopting it sooner, would you all be able to get any better rates or anything like that?
I think that if you guys would have that approval, it would help, yes, if you guys are comfortable with that.
I move we approve the ESL textbook adoption as presented.
Thank you. And a
Emma
second.
Doherty, second.
Emma, thank you. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried 7-0.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Now, Amy might cheer for you, actually, so thank you.
On to item 9, school board reports and upcoming dates of importance. The only listed item, I know there are several farther out, but first coming up Sunday, May 2nd, the retirement reception for district staff that's held at Salina Stadium at 3 p.m. Again, I made this mistake my first year. There is a program at 3 p.m., so please arrive on time. It's not a come and go sort of situation. Mark, you want to start with the board report?
Sure. Following up on Jennifer's presentation, You Make a Difference, I got to go to Schilling this month. I recognize Mr. Bennett. And it was a really, I say this every month it seems like, but it was just a really neat thing. I mean, Mr. Bennett, because he's in charge of the grounds, he doesn't often get to come to the office. And when he was called in for an appointment, he thought he was in trouble. And he walked in and said, what did I do wrong? And I said, nothing's great. You're being celebrated. And it just is the relief and then the excitement about getting an award. It's just really a neat thing. And there was only one other person given COVID restrictions in the room to hear it, but they made an announcement. It was a nice thing. I'm just really pleased to be a part of it and glad we do such recognitions. Salina Education Foundation, Michael pretty well gave our presentation tonight. I mean, the lift recipients, the grant recipients, that's what it's all about, keeping these dollars in the community. One thing Michael has done this year as a new leader, executive director, is he's asked board members to help with some of the thank you calls, some of the solicitation calls. So I had opportunity this last month to call 4 or 5 of the businesses in town that donate, including like the Rotary Club and Salina Health. just trying to contact places like that and that, hey, this is a big place that a lot of people represent, but you make a difference in Salina as well. It's neat to be a part of that, and I just really appreciate Michael's leadership and the great direction SEF is taking. Since we last met, there have been 2 Smoky Hill Education Service Center board meetings, one in March and the April one was last week. I attended both of those. I think we're in great partnership with that community overall. For the most part, as board, we spend a fair amount of time talking about budgets and what else can we do to help move things in the right direction. But I'm just really pleased with the overall direction of SHESC as well, and appreciate our partnership there. So I think that's it.
Thank you. Ian?
Yes, I attended Equity Council in March, we were looking at discussions, for having discussions about microaggressions by watching videos and articles to decide if we thought that the ones we were watching or reading would be good to include in training. And they were interesting, and I think we approved pretty much all of them that we saw. I gave a You Make a Difference award to Emily Barkus in Aaron Wright's office, and it was really fun. She, you only see part of a face, but and she was very polite when I came in, and then I told her she was getting an award, and it just changed her face. It was really fun. And thanks to Jennifer for coming in and taking the picture. I attended the Central High's National Honor Society ceremony, and I was glad that they could all be there in person. I am wishing that some of us would go to attend a regional Kansas Association of School Boards regional training, and the one left is on the 29th of April, and I would encourage somebody else to go. I hope to go myself, but it's often a helpful thing to, and it would, we can't go to the one for the Central region since it's tonight, so the Western region was last week, I think, or a few days ago sometime. And so the Eastern region would be a different group of people than we usually see. So anyway, I would encourage some of us to go to that. That's all. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. The only other thing I'd add on Salina Education Foundation is we did participate in Match Madness and met our goal, actually exceeded our goal, so that was pretty exciting. I do think that he's doing a very nice job getting our face out into Salina. I presented 2 Central You Make a Difference to Destin Glavin and Darcy Redden. Actually, I didn't get it to Darcy. I didn't tell you this, but she was gone that day, so that was nice. I'm getting ready to read in a 5th grade class. I know we all got that message, so I know that Michael's been really wanting us to do that. So if anybody's available, we should. And then Superintendent Exline and I are working on getting the marathons back started in the fall. So that hopefully next time I'll have a better report for that.
Very good.
Deal. I got to be a part of delivering a couple of the You Make a Difference awards at Sunset and Lakewood. Also attended the National Honor Society induction at Central with a few other folks, and got to attend after prom and kind of rove around and be a part of that. And well, I tell you what, if you get an opportunity to participate in that, it's not only good because the more people you have, the easier it is, but that is a super event for our youth. So,
very good. Thank you. Scott?
I was at South High School for You Make a Difference. I also attended the honors event, sat in on the Heartland meeting. There's one more meeting coming, and then they'll be done for the school year, but they're doing really good there. And then I've also took into some of the softball games. The facility there is really nice. Concerned about the mud stuff, but it's going in the right direction. I actually got to spend some time with the athletic director there, and had a good conversation and got some questions answered. I do have one question for Mr. Upson. The leak that was over at Sunset, do we know what caused that? I hate to put you on the spot, but I just remembered I wanted to follow up with that. But if you could let me know, I was just curious on that one.
Yeah. been abandoned from when we did the bond in 2017 or 16 over at Sunset. And we discovered that we had basically a dead-end water line there that ended up freezing in that really cold weather that we had. And we obviously didn't know about it, and then discovered it when our water meter reading was way too high. So it's been repaired and dealt with.
Thank you.
Attended April 1, the Salina Area Chamber of Commerce annual meeting by virtual, and then April 7th, the National Honor Society at Central High, and the speaker was Mr. Cunningham, and he gave a dynamic, inspirational speech for the students and parents and everybody there. April 8th, I attended a KASB virtual roundtable discussion. This was with the western part of Kansas, and encourage all of us to be very close to our legislators and keep them informed as to how we develop and focus on our students, and share with staff. Communication's a big issue, and make sure we keep people transparent. Engage, like I said, with our legislators. And then most of them were very concerned about the Senate Bill 40 and what concerns it will have for the school boards and the school districts. Thank you.
Thank you. I attended a March Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting. I think we'll have some discussion on the tennis project next meeting, but nothing of real consequence for this group there. Also, the Chamber Board of Directors meeting in March, where Superintendent Exline gave an update on the district to that group, and I think was well received. And also not as board work, but received my first COVID vaccine last week at JCPenney. I would encourage everyone out there to look on vaccinefinder.org of where they can receive theirs. Everyone 16 and up is eligible. So on to the superintendent's report with Superintendent Exline.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple things that I want to share with you. The first is we had a fabulous first day with all students back. I was out in all 4 buildings on that Thursday and Friday, spent quite a bit of time in each building, and students were excited to see each other, following our safety protocols. I was really proud of how they handled that transition back, and it's nice to just have some normal again. Prom added to that, and again, a great night, and students were very positive. It's nice to be able to offer them those opportunities that maybe have been missed, and getting back a little bit normal that way too. I do want you to know that tomorrow we have our outside visiting team accreditation visit. Heidi Pecan has been the one who is in charge of that and spearheading that, and so we should have some feedback to share with you at the next meeting. We have been, Lisa Peters and Shanna Rector and I have been meeting with building principals to get ideas for the ESSER 2 application. And so we are in the process of getting all of that consolidated so that we can start applying for those funds to be able to draw down. Lisa did get the ESSER 1 final report submitted, and so that was a relief to get that all buttoned up. And then the last thing that I want you to know about is that I'm currently engaging in a 21-day equity challenge with community leaders from across the community. And that is in combination with the city, Kansas State Polytechnic, Kansas Wesleyan, the county, Salina Area Technical College, and 305. And I want to thank Tiffany Lowe. It was an idea that we had one morning when the leaders of those public entities met, and we said, this is something we'd like to do. I handed it off to her. She did the development and then worked in conjunction with a leader from Kansas Wesleyan and another from K-State Polytechnic to actually bring that to fruition, and we rolled that out as of April 1st. Our hope is that after we have engaged in that, we will refine and that we will expand beyond the leadership group that's doing that right now. And so it's been really positive, and I'm really proud of that community-wide collaboration. So, yes. It is 21 days of little mini assignments to build your knowledge, to build your awareness of equity issues. And so it includes some readings that have been purposefully selected, some videos, TED Talks, all different kinds of things that we are doing, just different activities, one each day. And then there are several times throughout the 21 days where we meet across organizations via Zoom to have conversations about what we're learning. And so it really is just meant to build awareness and to build conversation. And it's been really positive. We're on day 13. So we will meet again as a group. I think next Monday is the next time that we meet and talk about what we've learned and our observations, doing some journaling as we're doing this as well.
Will there be a presentation about it at the end of it? I mean, will you tell us some things that you learned? Or?
We certainly can do that. And the other thing that we could do is we could provide that, we could include you when we roll out the next challenge as part of that. It doesn't take long, but it certainly does raise your awareness. And so I'll work with Tiffany on kind of sharing exactly what we did with you and the videos so that you can have access to those resources as well.
That'd be great.
So,
Thank
yeah.
you.
I have one more question. Do we have another board meeting at the end of April?
We do not.
Not. Thank you. I think this is really good because even at the KASB Western Region, they recommended that we have the art of looking ahead. And one of the questions was, how is equity part of your conversation on a regular basis? So might let KASB know what you're doing too. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got 3 executive sessions on our agenda. First one for personnel. How many minutes are we thinking there? 5 minutes on that first one. Going in at 6:35. Is that okay? Yep. Someone want to read that?
I move the Board of Education go into the executive session at 6:35 for 5 minutes for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel and their contractual obligations. Because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might invade the privacy of those discussed. That the Board of Education reconvene in open session at 6:40 in the board conference room.
Thank you. In a second.
Second.
Second by Ian. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. We'll go into the board conference room for this executive session, and we'll come out for any action that needs to take place. Anticipating that after the second. Thank you. I'll call us back into session here. We do have a motion after that second executive session.
Mr. President, I move that, I move to approve renewing the contracts for certified administrators and classified directors for one additional year as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mark seconds. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. We do have one more executive session for attorney-client. Is there someone that wants to read that motion? Yes, sir.
Do we want to start at 7? Would that be?
That would be
better?
great. Yep.
Okay. Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education go into executive session at 7 o'clock for 20 minutes for the purpose of consultation with Board Legal Counsel on matters which are privileged in the attorney-client relationship, which if discussed in open session would waive that privilege, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 7:20 in the board conference room.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Ian. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried 7-0. We will come back into this room after that executive session around 7:20 for any action after that and to adjourn our meeting and move into the work session. We are back in open session and do not have any action to take after our last executive session. We're going to recess for a few minutes here and move into our 2 work sessions this evening for property and policy review. This will end our live stream, so thank you to those who are joining us online for that. Have a great evening.